Welcome back to the YS channel where we review movies, even the occasional quality gem of a movie. And speaking of that, today we're going to review Studio Ghibli's Grave of the Fireflies. This is a very emotional, poignant film. It's a heart wrencher. That's for sure. This is one of those movies where show to somebody they will actually watch most of it, the whole thing, and they have no like emotional reaction of any sort. And have to question if you're an actual human fucking being.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing this movie on TCM years ago, and I was fucking disturbed at what I was seeing. Like it's like Grave of the Fireflies is from Studio Ghibli in 1988 by director Isao Takahata. I forgive me for butchering that, but
Yeah,
but but
Takahata.
and the film is based on a somewhat true story, but the person who wrote the story lived to tell the tale. But basically, it's about a brother and his sister surviving the aftermath of the Kobe bombings in World War II. They basically during World War II, when the United States started bombing Japan, they were decimating whole cities in some occasions about the use of atomic bombs. And that's what happened in Kobe. And brother and sister basically go do a lot of traumatic shit in order to survive. And now, one thing I will say about this movie, the director made the movie not to say how sad it is that the children died in the movie, but as a lesson that children need to obey the elders in such situations, which is actually a theme in this movie.
Yeah.
Even though it sounds cruel, that's how the director sees it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is centered like on Japanese culture. So you gotta understand, this is actually the story is the movie's based off the book of the same name.
Yeah.
And it's a semi-autobiographical story by Akiyuki Nosaka. So I mean, a lot of the events, everything are based off it. So again, the two main characters are Seita and Setsuko. They're the two siblings you see throughout the movie who are struggling to survive. Again, the aftermath of the Kobe bombing and all that in World War II. So I mean, this movie like very emotionally just gripping. There's no way around that one. Like, you don't feel any kind of reaction when watching this. Okay, I really do have the question if you're an actual like human being, right? So right from the get go, right, the start of this movie. I mean, it's almost 40 years old, so it's not much of a spoiler anymore. Saita and Setsuko, they lose their mother, right? She gets wounded and burned, and the bombings, right? They presume that their father, who was in the Japanese Imperial Navy, they assume he's dead at sea, and all that. And then one thing leads to another, and they end up living with their aunt who resents them, right? And she treats them with cruelty. And then fed up with their abuse, with the abuse they're receiving, they decide to run away. And then they pretty much find like an abandoned bomb shelter in the countryside, and they make that their home. So again, I mean, it's just a very powerful movie. I consider it a masterpiece in a way. I mean, it's nothing too flashy, but I mean, when it makes you like feel really strong emotion, and they did something right. So as you know with this movie, right? Saita and Setsuko, they struggle, right? Saita again is he's the brother. Setsuko is the little sister. So life is difficult. They're living in an abandoned bomb shelter, and they're struggling to find food and water and all that. And resources are scarce. This is war-torn Japan. This is, Japan -1. If you watch Godzilla -1, this is pretty much that about Godzilla. And they faced a lot of hardships during their time. being by themselves.
Yes. Tragically, Setsuko falls ill and eventually succumbs to malnutrition and illness. Illness in the film's heartbreaking climax. Seita is left alone with his sister's ashes, realizing he has failed to protect her in the midst of all the devastation and what's going on. I'm going to add something here. Like I said, the film's message and moral is like basically it's telling kids obey your elders in times of hardship, no matter how cruel they are. But their aunt is a really cruel bitch. You can buy Japanese standards. Like she's like granted resources are scarce and all that stuff, but she expects way too much out of these children in such dire situations. And in the beginning of the movie, as you see the older brother is among other children dying at a train station because the adults don't want to take care of their children in such period of devastation.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to touch more upon that aspect of it in our review here. You know, it's very sad, right? But before we get to that tragic climax when Setsuko dies of malnutrition, right? And everything that leads to that downward spiral, like, holy shit. There are circumstances in the movie where they do find like joy and just jubilance and tenderness in their bleak existence. They play in the fields, they catch fireflies, you know, hence why they call it Grave of the Fireflies. You know, they actually make a little makeshift home, right? You know, they I mean, there are moments of like joy in this movie. But all this is they captured this very well. Especially you gotta understand this is entirely from the Japanese point of view, right? So things that we may not agree with culturally were things that were prevalent, especially back in that time period. But yeah, I know like after like all the air raid bombings, you know, the nuclear bombings and all that, you know, they did have a way of just kind of abandoning people, for better or for worse, I guess.
That is true. I think the most grievous example of this was after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki from the atomic bombs. Like basically the survivors that were well bodied just abandoned everyone else there, and then Japan as a whole abandoned those two cities for fear and superstitions that are culturally exclusive to them, and as a result, many more people that could have lived died because of neglect.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what happens here to them, unfortunately. And now, yeah, I understand this aspect of it. Much of society there is coming to grips with the aftermath of the war. You know, that's a tough thing. Just that's a whole different subject. We're not going to get into too much here, but anyhow, these are all themes that are addressed in Grave of the Fireflies. You know, themes of war, loss, resilience of the human spirit. You know, and it really does show the devastating impact on the innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the war. You know, and how they suffered, especially the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then ultimately you see what the toll that war takes on people that are, especially in the direct line of fire. Because you gotta understand, like, even like in the European theater as well, like all the cities and towns that were just air raid bombed. You know, those are the people that got fucking blown up in that. Had nothing to do with the war. You mean I get like the targets were like strategically important for military like purposes. You know, especially when they dropped the nukes, right? You know, again, most of the people that suffered were just people minding their own fucking business. And yeah, they carry the scars of that, you know, for generations. I mean, they still are. So
yes, it's a World War II has not completely gone over in Japan culturally. Like the devastation they witnessed firsthand. It was really it was pretty traumatic. Even worse of all was the fact that the Americans were bombing them the fact that the government of Japan was at one point prepared to willing to sacrifice every citizen, including babies, to keep them in power when if American soldiers made landfall on the main islands.
Yeah. So I mean, there you have it. Now, talking more about the movie specifically, right? You know, there are aspects of their scenes that are heartwarming, right? Despite all the gloom and doom, right? Again, like the brother sister moments. He's looking out for her, and they're playing with each other and all that. That brings some, like, I guess, warmth to your heart watching that. I mean, they do it very well in this movie. However, again, all the other, like, cruelty and neglect that they experience, you also, I mean, you as a viewer, you feel it. Like, I've only watched this movie like twice all the way through. And I'm like, it makes you sad. I mean, and I think that's what they try to make you feel here. And if so, I mean, they succeeded, flying colors. It makes you think, right? That's what a great movie does. It leaves that lasting impact. This is not a movie, unlike other Studio Ghibli movies where you could rewatch them multiple times. Like My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, to name a few. Those you could watch over and over and over and over and over again. This one, like, maybe you break this one out occasionally. Like, it hits hard. That's the best way to describe it. It hits hard, man. Especially like, watching Setsuko, like, kind of wither away from malnutrition throughout the movie. I mean, I got kids, man. I couldn't imagine having to bear that burden.
Even worse, the brother is like maybe like 12 when this movie takes place.
Yeah.
And he has to like literally cremate his sister at such both by himself at a tender age by himself. That's just one of the more heartbreaking scenes in the movie. It's actually based on a real event too. There's a famous photograph of a young boy carrying the corpse of his like dead baby brother.
Uh-huh.
And he's like waiting. He's waiting. His turn to put him in the funeral pyre or something.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this one's similar. There's another movie out there that touches on similar things called Barefoot Again. But that one actually deals with the atomic bombings. So, I mean, if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, people, that's worth a watch as well. The character, again, the two main characters, they're infectious. I mean, it just leaves a lasting impact. There's no other way to say it. For those of you who haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend, especially if you're a Studio Ghibli fan, watch it. It's definitely worth the watch.
That's some tidbit to this movie. I believe Grave of the Fireflies was actually paired with My Neighbor Totoro's back-to-back features when both movies were actually released in 1988. So you have like a sad movie and you have a happy movie to counter it.
Yeah, you need it. Yeah, 2 home runs back to back too. I mean, as far as box office excess, maybe not, but as far as quality, yeah, I mean, especially for like anime movies, or even anime movies in general, you're not gonna find ones that have that strong of an impact. So anyhow, again, if you haven't seen it, go check it out for sure. And then, you have any last tidbits, Cameron?
I have some tidbits. Like Grave of the Fireflies, in my opinion, is it's to Japan what Dredge was to the United Kingdom, and what the day after tomorrow was to the United States. except that Grave of the Fireflies does not deal with atomic bombings and aftermath of that. But its impact as a movie, in the aftermath of war, is just equally horrifying, inflicted on the main characters as those two movies were back in the day.
Yeah. So with that said, again, if you like our reviews, drop a like, follow, subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Until the next time, later, y'all.
Later.